Hi, this course project is for the subject Application and Lifecycle Management. Application and Lifecycle Management, or ALM, is a web-based testing tool and is developed by HP. It supports different phases of software development lifecycle, or SDLC. It helps to manage the application lifecycle phases such as the requirement specifications, development, testing, implementation, and maintenance. ALM workflow and overview. It started with release details, followed by requirement specification, plan test, execution of test plan, and finally, the track defects. The plan test phase will begin after the requirement specifications has been performed and the test strategy is determined. Test plan or plan test is used to keep all data related to testing planning, such as test plan and test cases in Quality Center. A test plan tree is a graphical representation of test plan, displaying the tests according to a hierarchical relationship of their functions. This phase starts with developing a test plan tree in the test plan module where scope items, work requests, or testing unit are mapped as subjects. Subjects contains tests, and test contains test steps. Test planning overview. Develop the test plan tree wherein you can create a subject folders or define a specific test with each subject folder. Add manual steps for each test. Build test scripts. Link tests to requirements. How to plan tests in ALM. The first one is the prerequisite. A set of requirements is defined in the requirements tree. Next is create a test plan tree, wherein you can create a test plan tree of test subject folders and tests. Create dependencies with test resources is optional. You can associate tests with set of resources that you upload to the ALM repository. You can then view these dependencies and determine the resources that are in use. Define test parameters. To run tests for different use cases, you can define test configurations. This enables you to run the same test under different scenarios. Create test steps. Create test steps describing the operation to perform and their expected results. After you define the test steps, decide whether to perform the test manually or to automate it. Automate tests. After designing test steps, decide which steps to automate. Factors influencing test automation including the frequency of execution, volume of data input, length of execution time, and complexity. Create requirements coverage. Link each test in the test plan tree with the requirement or requirements in the requirement tree. By defining the requirements coverage for a test, you keep track of the relationship between the tests in your test plan and your original requirements. Link a test to a defect. Link a test to a defect is useful. For example, when you have a new test is created, specifically for a known defect, by creating a link, you can determine if the test should be run based on the status of the defect. Analyze test plan data. This is by generating reports and graphs. Establish a baseline. After your test plan has been reviewed and approved, you can create baseline. A baseline provides you with a snapshot of your test plan at a specific point in time. Use a baseline to mark any significant milestone in the application lifecycle. The baseline then serves as a point of reference against which changes can be compared. Test plan specification overview. The test plan as a whole is too large, and the test plan module will be able to divide the application according to the functionality. The user may divide the application into units by creating folders in test plan tree. It could be graphical representation of the test plan, which could display. Creating tests. Wherein you can create test subjects, wherein you can also create folders in the test plan tree, or create in the test plan tree, wherein you can create tests under the test subject folders. And this one is optional, where you can create tests from testing tool, and then import the tests, and then create manually template tests, which is also optional. Create a UFT template GUI test is also optional. And then add steps to test. There are several test types in the test plan modules. To name the following is: first, the business process, the external tests, wherein a test entity that represents a test saved in an external repository, and then the flow, the test comprising a collection of business components in a fixed sequence that performs a specific task, the UFT developer test, wherein each UFT developer test represents a single test method inside the UFT. And then the LR scenario is executed by load runner. The next is the manual test, the test that is run manually, the performance test, and the QA inspect test, wherein a test that is executed by QA inspect, the microfocus security testing tool. The quick test test, a GUI test that is executed by unified functional testing. This test type is only available if you have installed the appropriate add-in from the application lifecycle management add-ins page. Next is service test, an API test created in unified functional testing in test or service test, microfocus tools for creating tests for GUI-less applications such as web and REST services. The system test, a test that instructs an ALM to provide system information, capture a desktop image, or restart a machine. A VAPI XP test is a test that is created for Visual API XP, the ALM Open Test Architecture API testing tool. And the last one is the VueGen script. A VueGen script that is executed by load runner, the microfocus load testing tool. The test plan user interface shows that the menus and the buttons, it is over here, And then the test plan tree is placed over here. And then the windows, the testing windows, which have sub-menus of test resources, business components, test plan, and test lab. And the module fields, which consists the details, design steps, parameters, test configurations, attachment, and requirement recoveries. The new test dialog box will appear upon clicking the new test menu. And then the module icons inside it will appear. Requirement and test coverage overview. You have to add links between the requirements and the test in order to track of the relationship between them. This will lead essential tests in your plan in meeting your original requirements. A requirement can be covered by more than one test. You can cover a requirement by test configurations. And test configurations represent a specific use case of a test. You can link model entities to test. Next is the test parameters. Test parameter is a variable that can be assigned a value outside the test from which it is defined. Using parameters can increase the flexibility of your test by enabling you to run the same test repeatedly with different data each time. It is from the ALM Help Center. You can add parameters to the design steps from within the test, or you can add parameters by calling them from other tests. You can create two parameters, for example, the username and the password. You can define parameters for a test script from within the test, or you can load parameters from a shared test resource file. Next is the test manual design and automation. Defining the test design step is performed after adding the test to the test plan tree. After defining the test design, you can choose between the test manually or automated. If you choose the manual step, execute them on your application and record the results on each step. Use manual tests in cases where the test requires a response by the tester. For the usability test, one-time tests, tests that need to run immediately, tests require knowledge of the application, and tests without predictable result. You can choose automate. If you choose the automate, the testing expert can use the design steps as the basic for creating the detailed test script. Automated tests require that you create automate test script using microfocus testing tool on a third-party testing tools. System test. You can create a system test by adding a system test to a test subject folder, defining the test, and adding the test to a test set. You can view details for each of these steps after the system has been finished running. You can also view the system information that has been retrieved, such as CPU, memory, and process running on the machine, and an image of the machine executing the system test.